Aboim b'shem Hashem. B'shem Egen Shir Torah Moses Bosim. I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's shir. I'd like to give a big yashikayach to the exclusive sponsor of tonight's shir, Be'elam Shem, the Nishmas, Reb Gershon Yosef ben Rav Avram Zev, and the leading Neshama is Yeshua ben Yitzchok, Yitzchok ben Yeshua, Yosef Yitzchok ben Rav Yisrael, David ben Shlomo, Shlomo ben Moshe, Baruch Yaakov Yisrael ben Chaim Uri ben Yaakov Yisrael, Chaya bas Gershon Yosef, Yenta bas Meir, Simei Esther bas Chaim HaKohen, Rivka Miriam bas Chaim Yitzchok, Yuta Mindel bas David, Yocheved bas Chaim Yitzchok, and Brocha Mirel bas Chaim Yitzchok, Aleim Mashol, and Tzedish Mesem Tzuris B'tzar HaChaim. To have the great schus of sponsoring a shir, call Egen Shir Torah at 718-851-8651, or email ist@yeshivanet.com. Tonight we have the Khal to have with us once again, Rabbi Dovid Goldwasser, Shlit, Rav of Khal Bnei Yitzchok, Yostivei Cyrus, and Atah Imadi. If you are with me, it's my cover to call in Rav Goldwasser for tonight's drasha.
Bruchim Aboim V'Shem Hashem. It is a great schus to be here this evening during this tkufa of the 9 days Ben HaMetzorim. There is no greater nechama, there is no greater chizuk than to come and share Torah. And there is no greater organization worldwide that promotes learning Torah, especially during the times of what we need a little bit chizuk, during the summertime, during the winter, to be mechazik taras mishpacha and shalom bayis. Ein gedoyle mizu. I would just like to say it is a covet for us to have the presence of Rav Bald Shlita, the fact that he is the person that travels worldwide to be mechazik Torah. It is a schus for us. It's a schus for us in Shomayim that Be'ezer Hashem Yisparach should be mekarev the Pamei Mashiach Tzidkenu b'mheirov Yomeinu. We have a very interesting topic, Atah Imadi, that the Eibishter, Borei Olam, is always with us. The Heilige Klosenberger Rebbe, Zecher Tzadik Livracha Schusi Yogen Aleinu, said there were 3 words that he went through the entire years of the war, the Shnois Azam, the whole Auschwitz-Birkenau. Those 3 words, Ki Atah Imadi. The Rebbe said that every moment that he thought about it, it took away his dagas. It took away any worries that he might have had. The pasuk that we have from the Navi Shayo, Yoda Shor Koineu, that the shore, the ox, knows its master. V'chamor evus be'elav. And of course the chamor knows the trough, the watering part of its master. Yisrael lo yoda. Bnei Yisrael, they didn't know me. Ami lo hispainon. My own nation didn't think about me. The question is asked by many of the Mefarshim. We understand that the shor and the chamor, they didn't go to cheder, they didn't go to yeshiva. They didn't learn what they had to know about their owner, about the trough where they drink from. It was a teva that was born in, that Hashem Yisparach enrooted in them. So why are we guilty? The shor and the chamor, they both were given a teva. They were given the sensitivity. They were given the understanding. Klal Yisrael wasn't born with it. Hagoyin Reb David Kronglass, Zecher Tzadik Kodesh Rotar Livracha, says a very interesting tam. The tshuva is a dvar musar to ourselves. The Navi is megale. The shore was given its teva. The chamor, the donkey, was given its teva. However, Am Yisrael has the teva enrooted in all of us to remember Hashem. So what happens is a tviyah. What is it? That the shor and the chamor, they do remember. But Bnei Yisrael, sometimes we forget a little bit. Sometimes we need a gentle reminder. It's an interesting sefer that it says during the tkufa of communism, so many Yidden that we know when we rise up, we rise very high. When we sink low. So there was a Yid that Nebuch, he went over to the other side. He had the influence, and anybody, we're going to see a little bit later, anybody can be under the influence. Hashpos Ros, a person has to be so careful of. The Rambam says it's kedai to go to the desert. If there's bad hashpos in the city, go to a cave and hide out, like Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. But don't stay around, chas v'sholom, where there's negative hashpos. So what happened? Very interesting. He took a Sefer Torah, as difficult as it is for us to understand. He took the Sefer Torah and he began to rip it up. He took the Sefer Torah and he began to deface it. Now that is a difficult thing for us to understand. How could a person ever take a Sefer Torah like that? And that was in the street. However, at the moment when he was doing it, fascinating, something happened. There was a horse and a wagon that had an accident and turned over on him. His bones were breaking underneath the weight of this wagon and the horses. He was screaming out, Shema Yisrael, the same Yid that 1 minute before, Gevilin Nisrafin, he's tearing the parchment of the Sefer Torah. A few minutes later, he's screaming out, Shema Yisrael. That's the inyan that we all have, that Hashem is with us at every moment. Nobody should ever feel alone. No one should think even for a half a second that they are deserted. Hashem is here with us. We're going to see a fascinating Yalkut Shmoini that even Hashem descends. HaKadosh Baruch Hu goes to the depths of Gehenna, and even the Rishonim in Gehenna have not been deserted. Hashem says, I am there. I am together. Wherever a person could think of in this world, Hashem is together with them. In 5468, is about 300 years ago. So there was a great Talmud Chacham, a great tzaddik, and he happened to be the mechaber of the Chiburei Aleket. Chiburei Aleket. It's a wondrous sefer. It says that anybody that reads that sefer does tshuva shalema just by reading Chiburei Aleket. He writes in the Hakdama, Noira v'ayum, I saw the sefer just last week, lichvoi this evening. He says in the sefer that it was 10 days before Shavuos, he became ill, and he became so deathly ill that the family summoned all the top doctors. All the doctors came, and they all said the same thing. There is no answer. He's going to die. He is not going to make it. He was in bed. It happened to be that there were 3 days before Shavuos. His condition went so down, so far, that the doctor said, Ein ma lasos. There's nothing to do. They threw their hands up. And in that moment, they predicted that he's going to leave this world within an hour or two. He will not be here anymore. In those days, they summoned the Chevra Kadisha, Lo Yolenu Al Kol Beis Yisrael. They summoned the Chevra Kadisha that the Chevra Kadisha should take certain measurements and begin their preparations. And they did. Then, as he was lying there in bed, all of a sudden, he sees, wherever he was at, he sees that there's a malach coming with a ner doilek, with a candle that's lit. As he watched, he saw the ner, that the light on the candle, the flame, was getting dimmer and dimmer and dimmer. It went out. Then, moments later, it lit again. It relit. The candle lit. He said to the malach, Adoni HaMalach, tell me, what is this candle? What's going on? He said the candle is Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam. It's your candle. Your years on earth, the malach said, had already ended. They came to a stop. However, you fulfilled your chiyuv. You didn't have to worry. Hashem was melamed zchus. Hashem, ki Atah Imadi, always here, in the next world, in between the worlds, wherever a person is in, whatever tzara, chas v'sholom, a person is going through. Ki Atah Imadi, Hashem is with us at every moment, holding our hands. Hashem was melamed zchus, that in the future, you will publish a sefer. And that sefer will be Mazakeh the Rabbim. Many, many people will do tshuva as a result of that sefer. The Ner was relit. He came back to this world. The Malach disappeared, and he started to come to. He started to regain consciousness. When he did, he got up. He immediately asked for some water, and he made a shahak oil. The Chevra Kadisha were there. The doctors were there. The doctors were embarrassed. The Chevra Kadisha was embarrassed. Everyone was embarrassed. The family was embarrassed. They all ran out. They left him alone. He had a refuah shalema. He lived 15 years. 15 more years. In the Sefer, I would just like to quote what the Chibur Eleket says about Ki Atah Imadi. Pirush, bear with me for one moment. Yenachamu oisi. Hashem will always be menachem us. Hashem will comfort us. Yashikach, Rabbi Deutsch. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam shehakol niyeh bidvaroi. It's a chesed. Listen for one moment. La'olam abba yavayu sarei umas ha'olam. In the next world, the sarei umas ha'olam will come lekatre gal Yisrael to try and accuse Khal Yisrael. Elu oivdei avodah zarah, elu oivdei avodah zarah. These are serving avodah zarah. These are serving. Elu gilui arayos, v'elu gi arayos. These are immoral and these are immoral. Mipnei ma'oilin. Why do these go up? V'elu yordin legehenim. And why do the others go down to Gehenna? Then Hashem Yisparach will be requested, Vayomer Atah Imadi. I tell you the reason, because I am with them. Shivdecha Elu Yisurin Shesavalnu Bagalus. Shivdecha, the Shevet. Every time you sing it Shalosh Shudas, Shivdecha is what we go through during Galus. The pain, the upset, the trials, the tribulations, especially Bismanenu, all the things that we see, all the things that Khal Yisrael goes through, it should be ended already. Umishantecha, what is the staff? Zu ha-Torah she'asaknu ba mitoch tzaros ha-galus. The Torah that a person learns, no matter what is the situation, no matter what is the atmosphere, no matter what the trials are, no matter the difficulties, Torah goes on. That alone, that itself, Hemei Nachamuni, that's in the Chama. And that's like it says, Ach Toiv Chesed. It means the Torah that is called Toiv. And the Chesed that we do, Shegomanu La'aniyim Tiyem Elitza Ba'adenu Lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That is what saves us in front of Hashem. Hagoin, Reb Leib Steinman, Zechet Tzadik Kadosh Otar Livracha, said, what two things can a person do to escape the Chevlei Mashiach, to make it easier during this time of great pain? So he said two things. Be oisek in chesed, be moisef, even the littlest bit to add in learning Torah. That is what Rav Steinman put out at a particular time of challenge, and it happened to be Bein Azmanim. We know that everybody has a great zechus. Everybody in our entire kehila, everybody in Khal Yisrael, we have a zechus, Ki Atah Imadi, that Hashem is with us. We remember at every moment. The more that a person remembers that Hashem is with us, as we're going to see in a moment, the more that a person will deserve that the hashgacha, that the divine providence will shield us from anything that we might come to, anything that we might do. There was a Maisa Noira. Hashem comes to us at the most interesting times in life. I once had the zchus that the Agudas Yisrael hosted Rav Shvadron, the famed Maggid of Yerushalayim. Who can forget anybody that saw him, anybody that saw a picture, or you saw a clip of him? Rav Shvadron, he was fire. His entire being was Kedusha. Just to see him move, just to see him shake his head, it was something that there was nothing like it in this world. Rav Shvadron was in the office, and they said to him, would you like to have a meeting with the Goin. I was young. I said, with Rav Shadron? Are you serious? Yeah. I said, yeah, I'll take it right away. So, 3 minutes, Rabbi Scherer took me in. Rabbi Scherer, Zechet Tzadik Livrocha, Mirza Langiyoren, and I'm sitting in a small little office with Rav Shadron. And we went to talk and so forth. Rav Shadron said the following: if you're ever giving a drasha, or you're giving a shir, all of a sudden in mitten the shir or the drasha, an idea comes up, that something comes into your mind, he said, say it out. You should say it out. I do. I follow his words. Sometimes I don't understand it. Sometimes I wasn't going to say it, but I say it because that's what the great tzaddik said, so I said it. Sometimes a person can hear those words, or the words can come to them without even realizing the reason why they came to the individual. And they should say those words, because Me'es Hashem hoysa zois hi niflois beinenu. Those words came to us. It's a miracle. It's a wonder. V'adabra v'edosecha negem elochim v'loi evoish. I won't get nervous. I won't be upset. I'll talk about you, Hashem, in front of kings. Maaseh shahaya. There was a yeshiva. The yeshivas are all Kadosh. Every yeshiva, every Beis Yaakov, Kadosh. Kadosh. Anyone, anywhere, in the entire world. Doesn't matter. Every yeshiva. Yeshiva called me up. I was a younger man, barely out of the Beis Medrash, and they called me up. Rabbi Goldwasser, I said, yeah. He said, we're in a little bit of trouble. I say, I'm not sure I could help you, but there's a Chassam Sofer. If they call you and ask for your help, it's a siman that you could help. So I said, okay, what can I do? We are asking you to represent us. There is a meeting. We are in a serious situation right now because that group that controls the various institutions and the ability to get federal grants now has told us that we are under, scrutiny. We have not fulfilled the things that we should have up until now to get the proper credentials in order to be government funded. I said, okay. They briefed me for about 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and prepared me and told me the date of the whole session. I got a little bit nervous. I'm not prepared. I never did it before. I'm not sure what all of the laws are. Neither did I know where to go to research the laws, to get a paralegal to help me out in knowing how to do it, in which tainas to go. They also informed me that there's going to be a couple of Rosh Yeshivas there, and that doubly got me nervous. What am I going to say to the Rosh Yeshivas, and how could I possibly defend the yeshiva? It came to be the day. To me, it was, if it wouldn't be so upsetting, it would be funny. It was upsetting. I come on the day of the meeting. I forgot exactly the building that was in, and they had me wait outside until it was the time to defend the yeshiva that was up to that point in the agenda. I came in, and there was a table, tremendous table set with all the chashuvim and the Rosh Yeshiva, and the head of that particular presidium at that time was the great Goin, Rav Shmuel Yaakov Weinberg, who was the Rosh Yeshiva of Yeshiva Ner Yisrael in Baltimore, who followed Rav Ruderman, Zecher Tzadik Kodesh Otar Livrocha. So as I'm about to speak, and I ask everybody permission, and I, of course, gave everybody the proper honor, I began to speak. And I told them about the yeshiva, and I told about the good work that they do in the Mesiras Nefesh and the Bochrim that were able to steig, and how Bochrim went on and they went to positions of leadership in Khal Yisrael, and about the Rosh Yeshiva and the Geonis and the Tzidkis and how he'd do anything for anybody. And they said to me, yes, that's very good. All the things that you say are true. Emes v'yatziv. But you see, there are qualifications. There's certain work. There's certain steps that have to be done. There are certain things that have to be fulfilled. In the yeshiva, we gave them, it's already the deadline, they haven't fulfilled them. So what should we do? I was, at that point, when they asked me the question, I thought they were going to take my great presentation and say, everything's good. They didn't. Me'ez Hashem, hoisozois. All of a sudden, I thought of something. It came to me. Pure siyata d'shmaya. I wish I could claim it was Goldwasser's. It wasn't. Me'ez Hashem. Hashem gave it to me. I said to them, in the Sefer Avodas Pnim, it's a state that it says, Lo yisasech melacha yotzat ki ha-shofer uredias ha-pas. Taking the bread out from the oven, the challah out from the oven. Shehi chachma ve'ena melacha. Says the great Avodas Pnim. Avodas Pnim says that you could go through all the things in order to make the challah. You could sift the flour. You could measure it. You could mix the dough perfectly. You could knead the dough. You could let the dough rise. You could shape the dough. You can put it in the oven. Elamai. It's got to bake for the right amount of time. If you take the challah out too early from that oven and it didn't get to bake, it's almost inedible. As I said this, I noticed the Goin, Rav Weinberg, put his head in his hand. He let out, whoa. I didn't know yet what was coming down. Little did I realize, Sefer Avodas Pnim is a Slonomer Sefer. It happens to be that Rabbi Yankov Weinberg was a descendant of the Yesod V'Shorosh Avoda, direct in line in Slonim. Once Hashem gave me the right mishpacha to talk about, they granted the yeshiva an extension. The yeshiva eventually fulfilled all of their requirements, and everything came in its place b'shalom. Ki Atah Imadi. You have a young yeshiva bacher going in, doesn't know what he's doing. Against all the people that are Gedolei Torah and trying to give some defense that would make sense. And all of a sudden, there's an Avodas Pnim that I happened to learn because I got the Slonomer Sefer, and I said over the Avodas Pnim, and then all of a sudden, things changed. Ki Atah Imadi. Hashem Yisparach is with us at every moment, whether we know or whether we don't know. Hashpah. Let me go into a minute, just hashpah. We should realize that Hashem Yisparach is with us always. You come in Boston or Beis Medrash, where the Heilige Tzaddik, the Boston Rebbe, mi yitein t'muroi, mi yitein t'muroi. All the years, Kedusha, tremendous Kedusha. Going to yeshiva, going to a Beis Yaakov. The walls have Kedusha. The floors have Kedusha. It's a shaila. You see something on the ground, you have to pick it up. Umikdosh tiro. Person has to be careful about hashpos ra'os. Hashpos that are not good. Negative hashpos. All of us have to be careful. In New York, I won't tell you, Rav Gifter, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, once had to come to New York for a meeting. So Rabbi Moshe Scherer, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, asked him to come. So Rav Scherer said, I will come, but in New York there's a Zayfil Goods and a Zayfil Schlechts. There's some mashpos that aren't so good. He's afraid to come in. Rav Gifter's afraid to come in. I could come in. Rav Gifter's afraid. He said, If Rabbi Sher would make the meeting at the airport, he'll come in for it. If the meeting cannot be in the airport, he won't come in. Kachava, the meeting was held at one of the convention rooms at the airport. Im Hoya b'Medina, says the Rambam Hilchos Deos Perek Vav Aleph. Im Hoya b'Medina, that they have minhagim roim, and the people do not go b'derech yeshara. Yelech lemokum, do it where there are tzaddikim, b'noihagim b'derech toivim. Go where they do the right things. And he says further, the Rambam says, however, if you can't do it, and it's impossible to do it, so then go to a place where nobody is around, where you don't have to be under anybody's hashpah, anybody's influence, whether it's a ma'ara, whether it's a cave, whether it's midbaros, whether it's the desert, and there you will be safe. Ki Atah Imadi, Hashem is with us all the time. We always have to be careful. Hashpos Ros do not come. They are in contrast to the Kedusha in our world. The great Rebbetzin Kanievsky, who knows? If you could tell me exactly what the Sarah Torah Reb Chaim Kanievsky was, you could define him, or you could tell me in any way how we could understand such Kedusha in the world, I would be happy. You could be masber to me anytime you want. I say equally on the Rebbetzin Kanievsky. So she went to visit her father, of course, the great Goin Rebbe Yoshev. And there, in front of the house, she met her brother, Reb Avram. Reb Avram commented to her, you remember on this porch? Do you remember there where you used to say Tehillim? She smiled, and that was it. She smiled. On the way back, when she was going back to Bnei Brak, one of the women who accompanied the Rebbetzin said, Rebbetzin, what did your brother mean that that's where you said Tehillim? The Rebbetzin was mevatel the conversation. The Rebbetzin said, nothing special. It's just a story. It's an old story. Just an old story. The woman kept bothering her. Rebbetzin, Yilamdenu, what happened? What was the story? Finally, she said, I tell you the truth. Rav Elyashiv was not interested in anything else other than learning Torah. Nothing in the world was he interested other than learning Torah. The great Rebbetzin Elyashiv was not interested in anything in the world other than Rebbe Elyashiv should not be interrupted from his learning. They didn't have what to eat at home. Not having what to eat meant nothing. I was the oldest daughter, Rebbetzin Kanievsky said, so I had to go out. I had to go out to learn something, so I went to learn accounting. When I went to learn accounting, there was nowhere to go other than to people who were weak in hashkafa, people that were weak in Yiddishkeit. I was afraid of the negative hashpoya. I was afraid of the negative influence. Every morning, before I went to study, I would sit here, right here where my brother pointed to. I would say the whole Sefer Tehillim before I left, and I was mispalel, me'oimek libi, that I should be spared from all harm and all negative influence. That's a person that lives with Hashem. That's a person that does not even for one moment give up on the idea that Hashem is constantly with us. We say a posuk in Devarim, Ki karov elecha adover ma'od, v'fichu v'lvavcha lasoisoi. Hashem is close to us. The Maharsha is medayik on the words, b'derech she'adam roitze leilech, in the way that a person wants to go, moilichin oisoi. That person is led in that way. The Maharsha says that from every ratzon that a person has, there is a malach that is created. When a person has a good ratzon to do something good, they want to learn, they want to do a chesed, they want to do a mitzvah, so they have a malach already that is leading that person in the correct way. When a person has a certain teva and they want to change, if they embolden themselves and they want to change, it doesn't matter what it is, whether they don't want to They don't want to become angry anymore. They don't want to be jealous. Whether they want to be more careful in different inyanim and shmiras mitzvahs, whether they want to be careful in lashon hara, whatever it is, by the mere fact that the person has the ratzon, creates a malach that helps the individual that they should be matzliach in whichever mitzvah that they want to do. The Sfas Emes says, just like the koyach of a person is great to accomplish whatever they want, it is also me'oirer. Hashem Yisparach will help us once the person has that koyach, once the person has that idea that they so want to do the Ratzon of Hashem. We also learn, it's a Rambam in Hilchus Tshuva, Perek Zayin Vov, that a person could be despised in front of Hashem, Meshukatz, Umeruchak v'toyeva, abomination in front of Hashem. V'hayoim, however the Rambam says at the end, Hayoim hu ahuv v'nechmod karov v'yedid. Today is close. He is a relative and a friend of Hashem. A friend of Hashem. There was a chassid, a tzaddik of the Boyaner Chassidim. His name was Reb Nachum Yasser. Everybody knew that from all the children, there was one, unfortunately, one that did not grow up, one that abandoned the Derech HaTorah, one that left home. Reb Nachum never mentioned his name. He never spoke of the tsar, the agmas nefesh that a parent has. Lo yolenu v'al kol beis Yisrael. Every parent that experiences anything with any child that might have departed even slightly from the derech, they should be zoiche that the children should come back. V'heishiv leiv avos al banim v'leiv banim al avoisam. It should be taken from miyad. Never mentioned it to anybody. Tsar nagmas nefesh, a son, not to go in the right way. One time there were Koilo Yungalite, they were sitting together with Reb Nachum, and they were learning up the Rambam. This Rambam here, Hilchos Tshuva Perek Zayin Halacha Vav. All of a sudden, when they went on this Rambam, one of the men said, I don't understand. How is it possible that once a person should be in the gather of a to'eva, abomination, and then all of a sudden, the person is treasured, korov in a yedid, a good friend of Hashem. Reb Nachum couldn't bear it anymore. He couldn't take it. He exploded all of a sudden. He began to knock on the house, on the table in this Beis HaMedrash, and he said, I want you to know, if for one moment my son would come home and he would knock on the door and he would say, I want to return to you, do you think in one moment my heart wouldn't melt? I wouldn't even think of all the years. I wouldn't think one moment of grief, one moment of any agmas nefesh I had. I would be elated. I would kiss him and I would hug him. He would be my karov and my yedid. That is the way that a person has to feel. Ki Atah Imadi. Like Hashem is with us, Hashem is with everybody. No matter how far a person might have gone, Hashem is with them. Hashem is with them. It's not like you left Hashem. Hashem went together with you. We went into Galus. Yirmiyahu Navi, during this time, when Bnei Israel went into Bavel. So Yirmiyahu Navi is arguing with Hashem. Hashem says, you go. No, Yirmiyahu says, Hashem, you need to go to Galus. So you need you, they don't need me. And the argument back and forth. Ki Atah Imadi. Hashem is with everybody, no matter where they're at, no matter what they did, no matter how low chas v'sholom a person can go. Ki Atah Imadi. There was an individual that had gone to Kivrei Tzadikim in Poland. A lot of Kivrei Tzadikim. In the Varsha cemetery, the Beis HaChaim alone, how many tzaddikim there are. Amazing, amazing. Anyhow, he went Kivrei Tzadikim. All of a sudden, he went one day to the Chosem Lublin, the Heilige Chosem Lublin, whose yahrzeit is on Tisha B'Av. He sees by the Chosem Lublin a Yid. He remembers the guy for 10 years. This guy, this young man, acted like, for lack of a better word, an Eina Yehudi. But Gomer, really, like an Eina Yehudi. Here he sees him by the Matzeva of the Heilige Chosem Lublin. He's davening, Pchias, and he's crying. He looks. Maybe it's not really him. How could it be? The guy act like an Eina Yehudi for 10 years. He's standing there. He didn't believe it. Curiosity, sakronis. He says to him, "Excuse me, are you Moshe?" "Yes. Yes, I am." He says, "You'll excuse me. I beg you, Mechila, but I have to ask you, what happened? What brought about a radical change from one way to completely the other way? L'shem u'l'tiferes. What happened?" He says, "I have to tell you. You know, I was cut off from Yiddishkeit. I left Yiddishkeit for 10 years. I had nothing to do with Yiddishkeit. Not Yom Kippur, not Purim, not Pesach, not Chometz, not Matzah, nothing. Nothing. No tie. Not one word. Not one word tefillah. Not one word learning. Not one word of a mitzvah. However, after 10 years, I met a Yid walking on the street. And he said, "You know, I want to tell you something about your parents." "About my parents?" "To tell you the truth," he said, "I wasn't interested. Ze lo ma'anyen oti. I really didn't care." He says, "But I think you should know this." I said, "Okay, tell me." He said, "I want you to know, for the 10 years you've been away from your family's house, your parents never, ever locked the door. Never. Not one night. Not when they were home. Not when they went out. Not when they were in the city. Not when they were out of the city. With the hope that one day their son would want to come home. And if he would want to come home, Chalila, that he should find the door locked." Eze Mesiras Nefesh, Eze Kef, Eze Tzidkus. The young man said, "When I heard of that Mesiras Nefesh, I broke down then and there and began to cry. If they were willing to go so far, if they were willing to sacrifice and leave the doors open for me, how could I not go home?" I went back through the doorway of the house. I went into the doorway of their hearts. And I went back into the gates of the Shechina K'dosha. Hashem Yisbarach tells us in the same way, Ki Atah Imadi. Hashem is with us. No matter what, no matter when, no matter how, Hashem is always there. As it says in Eliyahu Rabbah, Parsha Chavtes, Meid ani olayas hashamayim v'ha'aretz. Hashem Yisbarach, sheyoyshev ani u'metzaper lo'en liYisrael. I sit and wait for Khal Yisrael. Yoyser me'av libnoi. More than a father waits for his son. U'me'isha lebita. Or a mother waits for her daughter. Shiyasu tshuva v'yiskaimu devar sheli. And will be fulfilling my word. Hashem Yisbarach waits for every person. Ki Atah Imadi. Hashem is with us. Not that Hashem is distanced himself from us in the Galus. It's only the feeling. Hashem is right here together. The Heilige Rishner was thrown into prison. And when he was going into prison, he said the following taich on Gam Ki Elech. Gam Ki Elech, although I'm going right now, Begeit Samovas, I'm going to a dark place to prison. Lo yira, I will not be afraid. Ra, the only thing bad is, Ki Atah Imadi, that you, Hashem, are coming into prison with me. Maaseh Shahaya. I will tell this group this evening. I never revealed it. I didn't think it was proper, but good Yedidim, Chevra, to come to learn and come out and leave the home to come in and to learn in Beis Medrash together on a summer night. Ein Gedolah Mizu. So I'm going to say it for the first time. There was a Yid in prison. A Yid went to prison. Lo Yolena V'Al Beis Yisrael. Rachmanis. Rachmanis. A Yid should sit in Tfisa. Mi Yodeya. Every day. Berachas HaGoymo. I went to visit him number of times. I went to visit the Yid. And unfortunately, it was extremely difficult for him because of his... Thank you very much. Koisi Revaya for you. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shakol niyeh bidvaroi. I went to visit him. It was the saddest thing in the world. I can't tell you why exactly. It was sad. He also had my telephone, special number. They were allowed to call once a week, only to the pre-arranged numbers, and my number was on there. One time he called me up. I remember like it will be today. It was a Thursday. He gets on, and I said, "How are you?" Before he was able to answer, all I heard is he broke down crying on the telephone. A Yid to break down, not to be able to answer. In Tfisa, in prison. I didn't even want to think about it. So I talked to him and I said, "Don't worry. We'll work on getting you out. Want to be mechazakim. We'll work on getting you out." Divrei chizuk. That's what you say. If you could or you couldn't, you try. You give him chizuk. You try. I hung up the telephone. You got to be careful. I get a call. We're calling from the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I thought it's... is it Purim? Is it Adar yet? Federal Bureau of Investigation. Ich bin a Ruv. Federal Bureau of Investigation. We would like you to appear. We are summoning you to appear in White Plains in our office. I said, could you tell me the reason? With the charges? No, we would like to see you. It's very important. It's an urgent matter. And they told me where to come, and they told me the time, and they told me the date. I said, well, could you tell me what it has to do with? The only thing they revealed was it had to do with a phone call that was made. Okay? I called up a lawyer, one of the best lawyers that I know, a Rebbe Shainako, Martin Friedlander. And I said to him, Remendela, I have a small problem. He thought it's a traffic ticket. I said, I got a call from the FBI. Mister, what? FBI? Roof! This is serious? What they say? Remendel began panicking. When he began panicking already, he didn't do good for me. I started getting nervous, right? He said, well, we'll try to find out a little bit more and everything. And he started to make his preparations. We're ready for the Yom Adin. And he said, I didn't want to get you nervous, but we're going to take along a top criminal lawyer by the name of Ross. He's going to come along, and he's also bringing a court stenographer with him. When I heard that, I was pretty nervous before then. When I heard that, it was like I didn't know which tefillas I should take up there. I'm David Yavin. I'm going there. Martin Friedlander's on my right, Esquire. The Ross is on my left. The court stenographer is together. They brought their own court stenographer. They didn't trust it. I come in, and the FBI, they were mechabed me. I want you to know. They brought an oilam. Kuvit Arav. I'm over there. I see the panel. The head is a woman. The head is a woman of the panel. She begins to ask me what I do. She begins to ask me kashas. What is my connection to that prisoner that is there, 317125? And I began to say it. What is your affiliation with him? How do you know him? Where did you first meet him? How many times did you visit him? When you visit him, what do you talk about when you go? Al Lamaises. I began to tell all that I do. I began to speak about where I live in the different areas and the travels and anything I could think of that may touch a responsive chord in the panel. And I thought I was doing pretty good until they went and read to me the transcript of everything that I said on that conversation. When it says in the Mishnah, Oizen Shama'as, I'm not sure that's exactly what the Mishnah had in mind, but believe me, it was an Oizen Shama'as. And the person said, did you say that? What they were intimating was that I was going to facilitate, I am pretty crafty, a jailbreak. And I was going to be able to extricate him through a very intricate plan of getting him out of prison. Okay. I have ties to the mafia, but they don't run that deep. When she read it, it was a little disconcerting. Me'es Hashem hoisozois. V'adabra v'edosecha neged melachim v'lo evosh. It came to me from Hashem. L'odam marche leiv u'mei Hashem mein aloshen. I said to her, let me ask you a question. If a mama was in the hospital and she was deathly ill, and the doctors had already given the negative prognosis, and her days were numbered, and she were to ask you, am I going to live? What would you say to your mama? Would you say, Mama, you're going to recuperate? Mama, I'm here with you. We're going to recover. We're going to sing and dance together. Or would you tell her, Mama, your days are gone. You're done. You're dead. That's what I said. It was completely out of place. When I said it, the woman that up until then was ice cold began to cry the most. She had to put her head down. Somebody passed her a handkerchief or tissues, I don't know what it was, and she began to wipe her face. It quickly ended. After that, there wasn't much more left to the whole trial. She thanked me for coming and then asked to speak to the lawyer, Ross, Michael Ross. On the way home, we had to take a train. It was a great distance. Michael Ross told me that the woman's mother is in the hospital. End-stage illness. And her mother asked her that day, how am I going to do? When are we going home? Atah Imadi. Atah Imadi. It was such a time for me. I want you to know, I did not tell one single person, not one person in the family. I didn't want to worry anybody. I didn't know whether I was coming home in the railroad that day or going in a different place. Ki Atah Imadi. A person always remembers that Hashem is with us no matter what. Interessante Shaila from the Lev Avram. Everybody knows Achaim Siman Pei Siv Beis. Hafilu lahar b'divrei Torah aser bebeis hakisei ubebeis hamerchatz. A person cannot think or say over divrei Torah in the beis hamerchatz or in the beis hakisei. However, and yochol arich lifnem, how great is the iser that a person should know not to do such a thing. However, very interesting, there is a din. The din is hocheach toichiach es amisecha. If you see somebody doing something wrong, you have a chiyuv mid'oraisa to correct them, to tell them that they're doing something wrong, to help them to come back. You can't have, it's not a decision, maybe I'll do it, maybe I won't do it. Prikatina, I see somebody over there, a tremendous load, and they're unloading it in the hot 90-degree weather. I can't say, it's a mitzvah, I could do it. A mitzvah, maybe I can't do it. I'll decide. Maybe I'll come back later. Maybe they'll still need me. It's a mitzvah. Mitzvah boliyotcha al tachmitzan. It's not a choice. It's an instruction for us that we do the mitzvah. That's incumbent upon us. Somebody comes over at tzedukah and they ask them, it's a choice. I could give it, I could not give it. However, it's a chiyuv. I have to have rachmanas. The person may need money. What happened? Nochem Ishkamzu riding on there. And then all of a sudden, Donnie says, I need something. Could Nochem Ishkamzu say, you know what? Listen, I'm really busy today. Come back tomorrow. We see Hamtani wait a few minutes. What happened? A person has to be careful. So could they give musar if they see somebody in the Beis HaMerchatz doing something wrong in Isser? And Isser D'Rabbanon, could they be mochiachim? How could they be mochiach? They're in a bathhouse. Osalar b'divrei Torah. They cannot say divrei Torah. They can't say psukim. They can't say anything. They can't back it up. How could they be mochiach? But yet the Lev Avram says they should be mochiach. So how does that work in synthesis with what we learned in the Mishnah Brura about afilu la'ar b'divrei Torah? It seems to be difficult. However, the Lev Avram says the chiyuv of being mochiach is even in the bathhouse, even in the Beis HaKisei, ki Atah Imadi, that Hashem is with us there too. The chiyuv to be mochiach even in the Rabbanon is a chiyuv mid'oraisa. We are not just a bystander watching, but we have the chiyuv to at least try and present the facts to get the person to do something different. How fascinating it is that an individual thinks at all times, Ki Atah Imadi, Hashem is with us, no matter where we're at. I never forget, I hesitate to bring it up, but I'll just bring it up anyhow. I went in a certain place in Florida a number of years ago. And there was a Yid who owned a hotel, and at that time had a kosher dining room. So the Yid said, I heard that you're speaking in this particular city. Would you please, it would mean the world to me. I want to show you the kashrus in our dining room. I want to show you Mahadran Mina Mahadran, he said, outside the Ir HaKodesh. He meant Borough Park, Flatbush, Muncie, Lakewood, outside the Ir HaKodesh. I have other ideas, Ir HaKodesh, but anyhow, outside the Ir HaKodesh. I was okay. I said, I'll try. He called me several times. Could you please stop by? Happened to be going on the highway. The driver said that the hotel is right on the way. So I said, okay, we'll stop. I come in there, and he was so excited, I can't tell you. He asked me, could I sit at the table? I said, okay, no pictures. I'll sit at the table. He said, can I be mechabed with you? Something. I said, okay, I'll take a drink. I'll take a drink. I went to take a drink, and all of a sudden, some people were like, there was a balcony above. Some people saw that I was there, and they all ran out. They all ran like in whatever it was. So he says, you must be very scary. I said, how come? He says, because there was a group of people that saw you and they just ran out. They were in the middle of eating. So I'm not sure exactly the reason why they ran out at that moment, but it didn't matter that Goldwasser Hakotan walked into that restaurant. Ki Atah Imadi. Borei Olam is there all the time. Measure how we are, how we go, the way that we walk, the derech eretz, the kavod, the kedusha, the tznius. It's all the time. Ki Atah Imadi. Hashem is always with us. Interesting. Shaila la'alocha, and unfortunately, we're coming to the end. And I like to finish up on time. It's always a good policy, although it's difficult with such great yedidim to learn together. Interessante shaila in Chasam Sofer. What happens? You have an oni. An oni can't afford nothing. Lo aleinu v'al kol beis Yisrael. We should all be benched with shefa rab. Parnasa mitzuya berevach. Everybody. Everyone. An oni comes to a gvir, and he says to the rich man, I would like to borrow $10,000. The gvir looks at him. If I lend you the money, how will you ever be able to pay me back? Where do you have even to make the money from? Shaila la'alocha, the Bach and the Gra. Imutar la'adam, if a person can take a lava, al smach bitochon b'Hashem yisparach. Hashem ki yukel zon u'mefarnes lakoil. Hashem Yisbarach is the one that gives all the money to all of us. So, person has emunah bitochon, especially when it comes to Suda Shabbos. The Oni says, I need to borrow Suda Shabbos. Yom Tov is coming up. It's a big Yom Tov. It's Pesach. Yom Tov, I need 1,000. Maybe, I don't even know if that'll carry it. Couple thousand, right? Could do it. Because Hashem Yisrael is maftiach that a person will have the money. Anyhow, shaila la'alocha, if you can borrow the money, if you can't borrow the money, if you can lend the money, if you can't lend the money. It's a whole interesting lamdis. Unfortunately, the time that we're at now, we can't go into the lamdis, but I would love to do it together with you. There was such a case that happened. A yid who was poor comes to a rich man, a gvir, and says, I need to borrow money. The wealthy man said, how much you want to borrow? He tells him, 10,000. 10,000? He thought he was joking. No, I need 10,000. The gvir was a person with great derech eretz. He thought for a moment, and he said, I tell you what, if you can find an arev, a guarantor, I will lend you the 10,000. The Oni says, really? He goes out. He's looking for an arev. He goes to every yid in the base ministry. How much? 10,000? Everyone's laughing. 10,000? Are you for real? 10,000, right? Then he remembers there's a pasuk in the Torah. Heilige pasuk. Chagi. Li'a kesev v'li'a zov ne'um Hashem. To me is the silver, to me is the gold, says the word of Hashem. However, you sign on the ksuba, Yirbu Smochos B'Yisrael. You sign on the Tanoim. Should be a lot of big simchas and Khal Yisrael for everybody, no matter where, no matter when, no matter how. Everybody that is waiting should be B'suras Tovos, B'karov. He knows Ne'um is also signed. The Eidim signed. Shimon, Ben David Eid. He thought, you know who's going to be my guarantor, my Arev? The Eibishter. The Heilige Bashefer is going to be my Arev. He took the pasuk, he printed it out, he wrote it over beautifully. He came to the Gevir, and he says, okay, Gvir, I got an Arev. The Gvir says, who'd you get? He shows him the paper. Liya Kesef, V'li Azov, Ne'um Hashem. The Gvir thought, he's ingenious. Once he did that, he said, I'm going to give you the money. He lent him the 10,000. Maaseh Shaya! He gave him the 10,000 for a certain amount of time. It came to be the night before it was due, the night, the Oni didn't have 1 penny of the 10,000. He doesn't know what to do. Sometimes a person has emunah pshuta, without any cheshbonis, without any chokhmah, without our own thinking, just emunah pshuta, emunah tahira. Sometimes that's all it takes. He comes into the shul after chatzos at night. He opens the Aron Kodesh, opens the door, puts the slip of paper in. He cries and he cries and he cries. Borei Olam, Avarachamon, you're my Arev. You're the one. I put you down. You signed on the paper. You're in the Navi. Hashem, you got to make it good. He begins crying and crying and crying. He doesn't know what he's going to do. The reality hit him. He falls asleep. Next morning he wakes up. Maaseh Shaya, Emes v'Yatziv, $10,000 in the Aron on top of his page. Takes the page with the $10,000. He goes to pay the Gvir. The Gvir said, how did you get the money? The Oni says, I went. Hashem was my Arev. I went to where I know Hashem is. The Shechina Akdosha, I went to the Aron Kodesh, I put it in, and the money came. The Gvir said, this is not Poshut. We have to ask Das Torah what this is all about. They went to the Heilige Ohev Yisrael, the Abderov, Rabbi Avram Yeshua Heschel, Schusa Yogein Oleinu, one of the greatest Avas Yisrael Rebbes that ever walked this earth. They went to the Ohev Yisrael, and they asked the Ohev Yisrael, Yelamdenu Rabbeinu, what do we do? The Ohev Yisrael said, the money is from Eliyahu Hanavi. Eliyahu Hanavi money cannot be just spent. What should we do with it? Put it into a Gemilas Chesed fund, and the money should continuously be lent out, never ever to be utilized except for Gemilas Chesed. The Gevir immediately set up the fund, put the money for Gemilas Chesed, and the story is that today somewhere in this world, in some place, the money still exists, is being let out as a chesed, a Gemilas Chesed. Ki Atah Imadi, Hashem follows us, no matter where we're at. Tzum Soif will be Messiah B'Dover Toiv. A father and a son were crossing a river. The father was afraid that the boy would fall in. So he said, my precious kin, hold on to my hand that you shouldn't fall in the river. Hold on to my hand. The child said, no. Tati, I ask you to hold my hand in yours. The father was confused. He said, what's the difference? You hold my hand, I hold your hand. The difference is great, said the son. If I hold your hand and something happens to me, I'll probably let go because I'll be confused. But if you're going to hold on to my hand, I know for certain that you will never let me go. You will not change no matter what happens. You will always hold on to me. You will always be with me and never leave me. Ki Atah Imadi.
Shem Irgen Shir Torah, most of Boston would like to give a big Ashikayach to Rabbi Goldwasser for their inspiring drasha. Rabbi say you can have a chelik in Irgen Shir Torah bring the awareness of Atah Imadi to the tzibur at large by sponsoring a share call Irgen Shir Torah at 718-851-8651 and email ist@yeshivanet.com for this great schos. I said a full schedule of the summer shiurim is available on the front table. We'd like to give a big Ashikayach to the exclusive sponsor of tonight's shir, Be'elam Shem, Leili Nishmas, Rabbi Gershon Yosef ben Rabbi Avraham Zev, Shchenu Levrocha, and Leili Neshamois, Yeshua ben Yitzchok, Yitzchok ben Yeshua, Yosef Yitzchok ben Rabbi Yisrael, David ben Shlomo, Shlomo ben Moshe, Baruch Yaakov Yisrael ben Chaim Uri, Chaim Uri ben Yaakov Yisrael, Chaya bas Gershon Yosef, Yenta bas Meir, Sima Esther bas Chaim HaKohen, Rivka Miriam bas Chaim Yitzchok, Yitzchok Mindel bas David, Yechevet bas Chaim Yitzchok, and Brocha Miro bas Chaim Yitzchok, Aleim Shalom, Tainish Mesem, Tzuras B'Tzara Chaim. Rav Chananya ben Akash, Yem Arotza Kadosh Baruch Hu L'Zakes, Es L'Shol Afir Himmel Am Torah Mitzvah Shenema, Aloi Noi Chofetz, Am Al Tzidke, Yagdol Tzara V'Yader.